Hi, Mika here from Superchat, and in this video we will take a look at some of the most important triggers in Superchat's automation builder. And we will talk about use cases, when to use which trigger, and also the differences between those triggers. And we will specifically take a look at the new incoming conversation, the reopen conversation, the new and reopen conversation, and the new incoming message trigger. At the end of the video, I also built an automation, and then we will also see kind of in practice how these triggers work. So let's start with the new incoming conversation trigger. The new incoming conversation trigger is primarily used for welcome sequences, or when you just want to send out a static welcome message to your customers. So this trigger is really designed to start the automation for the very first message that a customer sends to you. So especially for customers that you didn't chat with before, this triggers the automations for these kind of customers. It's important to keep in mind that we also have the welcome message autoresponder available in the inbox settings. That sometimes leads to the autoresponder from the inbox settings being sent to your customers. Then if you have an additional automation set up here with this trigger, both messages will be sent out. So therefore, please always be a little bit careful. All you need to do is go into the inbox settings and check whether this autoresponder is active, the welcome message. If that's the case, just disable it because in most cases it doesn't really make sense to send out both. So just keep that in mind. Exactly. Now navigating back, we will take a look at the next trigger. Here, one thing before that, you can already see, it's kind of one and the same trigger, only with different preferences. So I can either, here switch in between these triggers in this menu, or I can delete this trigger again and switch it here. It's kind of the same thing as, again, it's one and the same trigger, only with different options. So we covered the new incoming conversation trigger. So again, really only triggering the automation for new customers that you didn't chat with before. And then we have the reopened conversation trigger. This is designed for customers that you already have a conversation with. So this trigger starts the automation every time you have an existing conversation in Superchat. Important here is that the conversation needs to be in done. And then as soon as the customer sends a new message, this will automatically change the conversation status from done to open, so that you know that you need to reply again. And by doing that, the new inbound message from the customer will also trigger this automation. So here, this trigger really starts the automation every time the conversation isn't done, and then is reopened by a new incoming inbound message from the contact, and then changes the conversation automatically from done to open. Exactly. Then next up is, I think this is pretty self-explanatory, for new and reopen conversation. So this really kind of combines the trigger that I just explained. And then last but not least, we have the new incoming message trigger. And this really triggers the automation for every new incoming message, which of course doesn't really make sense. So please be very careful with this trigger. Like the other three should definitely be used more often. This is only for very specific use cases. For example, when you want to build a custom after business hour welcome sequence, then you can do something like this, always combining the new incoming message trigger with a filter. Like kind of here, otherwise we also throw a warning if there's no filter following this trigger, because usually there's no case of doing that, because then the automation is really triggered for every new incoming message, which can also lead to a lot of chaos. So please keep that in mind. So here, how this works is, every time a new message is arrived, then we filter by opening hours, and then what we might want to do is outside of the opening hours, we might want the AI agent to talk to the contact and not any of our users manually. Another example for the new incoming message trigger is to only then, as you can see here already, suggestion is to really only listen to specific keywords. For example, when like the customer writes something like if the message that comes in here contains one of the following words like ad, advertisement, etc., then what we might want to do is just automatically mark the conversation as spam. Just a different use case, but now I think you get the point how this new incoming conversation trigger, message trigger works. Exactly, nice. I think here these were kind of the basics, and now I also prepared an example automation, which I think will showcase very nicely how like the new incoming conversation and reopen conversation trigger work. So here for that I built a support automation. Basically all I did, super easy for you to replicate, is all I did is I used this AI agent with team handover automation template here from our template gallery. So in case you want to also use this automation, just make sure to select this one. Exactly. Now let's take a look at what I've built here. It's pretty simple. So all I want to do is for every new and reopen conversation, I always want to try to give the conversation first to the AI agent, because the AI agent should try to first, handle the situation on its own. And if he's not capable of doing that, and the contact asks for human help, here you can see it, we then assign the conversation to someone from our team. And in case he's able to handle the issue, we just mark the conversation as done. And in case the contact just doesn't reply anymore, we also mark the conversation as done. So here, as you can see, it's kind of, acts like a ticketing like tracker. So if there's a new incoming conversation, it's kind of the first ticket that the customer opens. And if there is a reopened conversation, it's kind of a new ticket that an existing customer that we already chatted with opens. And every time they do that, we always really want to try to automate as much as possible, therefore trying to resolve the issue first with the AI agent. In case that the end customer talking to the AI agent asks for human help, we assign the conversation, and then we add an internal note for the team using Superchat, kind of saying, hey, now you have to handle the issue of the customer, but once you resolve the issue, then make sure to mark the conversation as done, so that the automation can restart by the reopen conversation trigger. If the AI agent handles it automatically, we don't really mind, because the conversation will end up on done anyways. So making sure that once the customer, as soon as the conversation is done, sends asks a new question, then the automation is restarted, as we also selected the reopen conversation trigger here. So let's now see how this looks like in our UnitFed inbox. So here I have a conversation with myself. So like imagine a customer having a question. The AI agent here responded with the automation that I just showed to you. And now I, as a customer, just say, please connect me to a human. Kind of, going now the path where the conversation should be assigned, and then an internal note is added. That's exactly what happens here. So here you can see the conversation was assigned to myself, exactly what I selected in the automation. The AI agent then summarizes what was going on, and the note that we defined in the automation is set, kind of mentioning to the team, now it's on you to handle the issue, and once you handled the issue, please make sure to mark the conversation as done, so that the next time the customer asks yet another question, this automation can restart. Exactly, so now imagine me also being the user, resolving the issue of the customer, and then at some point the issue is resolved, and then I just mark the conversation as done. So now, a week, passes, and now at some point the customer has another like question. We're just now on my phone send yet another question, kind of opening a new ticket. And here you can see how long are you open, and now the AI agent takes over the conversation again. Here, now I was a little bit too fast. You can try it again. Here what now happened is the AI agent opted immediately for human handover again. This wouldn't usually happen because the user would, write a message here. This was now a little bit confusing to the AI agent because there was no messages from the team, so this usually wouldn't happen, so please ignore that. But this is exactly how the logic of the trigger works. So now here in this case, the AI agent would try to resolve the issue again, and then the automation can be recurring executed. Exactly, that's pretty much it. Let's go back here to automations one more time. There was one more thing that I wanted to show you. Yeah, now I remember what. This is now a little bit advanced. Sometimes what happens, let's stick to this example. Now imagine, me, the Superchat user, here responding to the customer, handling the issue, on my own, manually. And then at some point, I mark the conversation as done. And then, the end contact, like the customer, sends a new question, like after a minute. In most cases, we don't really want the AI agent to then interfere because, it was just like, 2 minutes ago that a human was talking to the customer. So in this case, we want to kind of avoid that, and that we can do by, kind of saving the time and date when the conversation was marked as done manually by a user, and then filtering for that. Sounds complicated. I'll show you how it works. So for that, we need a second helper automation, which looks as follows. So every time the conversation here is marked as done, we then want to go ahead and then update the contact attribute that is a date and time contact attribute that I just called last closed at, and then we want to set it to the current date and time. This you can find here under the variable, and then just select current date and time. And this, what this does is basically every time the conversation is handed over to a human, and as soon as he manually marks the conversation as done, here we can take a look at the attribute last opened. The automation was not published yet. I need to fix that. So here the channel was not set. Let me fix that, and then I can show you how this works. So now here, if I now mark the conversation as done, what should happen is here you can see last closed on the 8th of January at 3:25 p.m., which is exactly now. So like this automation worked. And now all we need to do is, in order to prevent the AI agent handing over, if just a second ago a human chatted to the customer, all we need to do is add a filter here where we filter based on that contact attribute. So filter by contact attribute, which is called last closed at. And then here what we want to do is, if it's in the past less than, let's say, like an hour, then we want to not do anything, and then can also, if it's more than an hour, only then we want the AI agent to respond again. So again, what this means is, if a human agent just marked the conversation as done less than an hour ago, which is basically more than an hour ago, then in this case we say, okay, it's fine, the AI agent can respond again. In all other cases, we just don't do anything, and then in this case, the conversation is still assigned, and then the human can continue the conversation with the customer. Exactly, that's it. I hope everything is clear. If not, feel free to reach out. We are happy to support you. Greetings from Berlin. Bye bye.